Independent bookstores mean everything to me. My first job after graduate school was working in an independent bookstore, and I can't imagine living in a town that didn't have an independent bookstore. That's for me, that's a priority when I'm looking at someplace that I think I might want to live. And when I travel, I always seek out the independent bookstores. My husband and I have even planned road trips where we've planned our journey from town to town based on where independent bookstores were.
Independent bookstores mean committed booksellers, people who believe not just in books, but in reading and in readers. And that's that that keeps it keeps the world's like soul alive. I think we need stories so desperately, but we need people to say, oh, you want that over there, no, you want this over here, or I just read this and you're gonna love it.
They mean my career basically as an author. When I was a debut author back in 2018, nobody knew me, nobody knew my books. But independent bookstores, especially my local ones here in Colorado, especially Boulder Bookstore, promoted me, got me school visits, talked up my books. I love going into my bookstores where I know the names of the booksellers, they know my name, and for being an author, especially a debut author, they are just invaluable in sharing the love of my stories and my books.
I worked as a bookseller in Denver at an independent bookstore for over 10 years. So independent bookstores are incredibly important to me because not only was it how I met all of my friends, but it's also how I got a lot of my education as a writer.
Most of all, what independent bookstores mean to me is community. They're not just places where you buy books, but they're places where you can talk to booksellers to get personalized recommendations, because not all books show up on bestseller lists or award lists. But there are so many books out there that are perfect for you, and the bookseller can make those recommendations.
I grew up not too far from Boulder for the most part, and my grandparents were really big readers and took me to all the cool independent bookstores that used to be scattered around the Front Range and mountain towns, and unfortunately there are not so many as there used to be. But Boulder Bookstore has remained substantially the same since then, and it's just amazing to me to have 25 years of memories of that wonderful bookstore, and now in the last 7 years to be treated as a local writer. It's just, it's a neat treat, a neat fulfillment of a childhood dream.
Independent bookstores are the beating heart of the community for authors. These are books that are handpicked by people who know books, who care about their readers, who know their community. It's a whole world away from an online algorithm, and it's all about getting the right book into the hands of the right reader and about bringing joy to people, and not just about making money for some faceless corporation. So it's a really important thing for authors, it's an important thing for the community, and I'm really grateful to independent bookstores for all that they do.
I love independent bookstores. I actually started one of my first jobs was working at an independent bookstore that specifically sold children and young adult books. And so that's something that I really carry with me as a writer, is knowing that independent bookstores are there to connect your book to the perfect reader that's out there.
Independent bookstores are a personal touch to book selling, and I love how independent bookstores like the Boulder's Bookstores will reach out to authors and illustrators who are local and invite them to participate in programs and events and even videotapes like this one.
Independent bookstores mean capitalism at its finest. They are literally the marketplace of ideas and part of the broader marketplace of ideas. Each independent bookstore offers a unique experience based on the variety of viewpoints of its booksellers. It's a no-brainer that independent bookstores are important mainstays of whatever shopping district they happen to be located in. But even more than that, they are important mainstays of democracy and even bigger of society. And I know that they are very important to my own personal well-being.
To me, independent bookstores are those places where you can go to find like-minded people, people who love books, adults who read picture books for pleasure even when no children are around, and people who appreciate how important it is to share the love of reading and empower future generations.
Independent bookstores help readers discover new writers, and as a new writer myself, I appreciate that. And I appreciate it when I'm looking for new writers to read, too. Independent bookstores choose books with their communities in mind, so I always know I'll find a book that speaks to me at the Boulder Bookstore.
I live in independent bookstores when there's not a pandemic happening and we can congregate. I really depend on being able to visit with people running the bookstore, chat with other book readers who are browsing the shelves. But most importantly, just see what is new in fiction, what is new in nonfiction, what's new in poetry. And I always come back home with a book that gets me started in a new direction or brings whole new insight to my life. And the kinds of books that I find at independent bookstores I can't find anywhere else.
But independent bookstores are the heart and soul of a community. Independent bookstores have booksellers who hand sell books to customers, where you can just walk in and say, "Oh, I'm looking for something for my son. He's in his late 20s. He's smart and he's eclectic and kind of sarcastic. What would you recommend?" And all of a sudden, you leave the store with a book that's just right for that person.
For me, indie bookstores mean community. When you go to an indie bookstore, there is this feeling that you are in the company of great books, but you're also in the company of other book lovers. You know, whenever I go to a town for the first time, one of the first things that I want to find out is, where is the indie bookstore? Because a town is only as good as its indie bookstore.
It's just about creating community. That bookstore, Boulder Bookstore, is so important because it's a place that we can talk to booksellers, that we can reach out and to our communities. I, like so many authors, need to be near books as much as possible, and stories are how we humans find our way. And independent bookstores and booksellers support our small communities. They're just vital.
Independent bookstores could not live without them. There is nothing like having a local bookstore where you know the folks and they're dedicated readers. And I just love going in and asking for people's suggestions and what they've been reading lately and what they've heard about and browsing. It's very, very, very special. And as a writer in Denver, these bookstores on the Front Range, like the Boulder Bookstore, like the Tattered Cover, like the Book Bar, they're like second families. They're like my home. I've launched every book in these stores, and just to have that kind of extended family and support means a lot as a novelist.
I feel like independent bookstores are really the champions for local authors, and if this video isn't a cool enough example of that already, with just giving, us authors yet another avenue to reach readers and to introduce ourselves to you, so that you can see our books. There's just such a personable piece of independent bookstores that you don't really find anywhere else.
Independent bookstores are my heart. Independent bookstores are a place where readers can go in and check out and browse wonderful new stories and wonderful new books and authors, and see writers in person and support your community at the same time. So I just can't emphasize enough how much independent bookstores mean to me and how important they are to the community.
Well, independent bookstores mean everything to me. They've been largely responsible for me selling as many copies of my book as I have, that I was able to do a third edition, the one with the cool new end sheets, and I was even able to go back and redesign the Evil Twins. And a lot of that has to do with their ability to facilitate school visits that I do virtually and in person, and hopefully I'll be able to do more in person in the not too distant futures.
They are the center of communities where people get to come together and talk and read about things that really matter. They are places to learn and gather and share. They are the center of so many small towns in the West, and having the Boulder Bookstore as my kind of home store, which is how I think of it, even though I live several hours away, has been honestly one of the great joys of my life. And I appreciate the support they give me and other wonderful writers of the American West. And of course, national and international writers as well.
So hats off to the Boulder Bookstore, hats off to independent bookstores everywhere. We could not live without you. You are the watering holes that we come to for humanity, culture, reading, friends. So thanks a lot.